Hi everyone and welcome to the Soundflow Music Academy page. Here today we're going to be doing a Rekordbox 6 tutorial. Now Rekordbox 6 literally just came out and it has some features that DJs have been asking for years. Alongside all those new features, I'm also going to be going through how to organize your playlists, how to set your memory cues, how to set your hot cues, how to use the intelligent My Tag system, and a whole bunch of other things to prepare you for really great DJ sets. So without further ado, I'm going to get right into it, and hopefully you'll find this video very useful and you'll be able to improve your DJ skills substantially. Now, many people don't necessarily realize just how important correct playlist organization and use of sort of analyzing and preparing your Rekordbox and your tracks is. It can help you drastically as a DJ. Now, some DJs don't really like to do this because they used to play with records, with vinyl, and they like keeping it old school, but the technology is there, so you may as well use it. Now, I want to give a big shout out to Captain Records because they have given me a big chunk of their releases to use for these tutorials so that we don't get flagged up by Facebook or YouTube and the video stays up and you can hear the audio properly. I'm also going to be using the tracks in the Captain Records playlist over here, but whatever I do within this playlist, you can mimic in your collection because it's exactly the same. The only difference is these are Captain Records tracks, so they won't get flagged up for copyright, like I said. Now, Rekordbox 6 just came out and it has some incredible features. I recommend that you do update from Rekordbox 5 if that's what you were using. Now, when you update it, it's going to ask you if you want to import your collection from Rekordbox 5. Go ahead and do this because it will import all of the data, all of your playlists, and all of your tracks from your previous version of Rekordbox. Now, once you do import your music, you're going to have to reanalyze it in order to get some useful information that is exclusive to the new version of Rekordbox. So what you're going to have to do, if you've already analyzed your tracks properly, is simply highlight all of your tracks, right-click, and select Add New Analysis Data. Now, I have already done this, so it's grayed out for me, but I highly recommend you go ahead and do this. Now, in the previous version of Rekordbox, the waveforms would either be displayed as with a blue color or with RGB colors, so red, yellow, green, blue, and so on. They've added this new version to Rekordbox 6, which you can change via the preferences. I'm going to go into the preferences, and I realize that you may not be able to see the preferences, so give me just a moment to make sure you can see them. There you go. So I'm going into the preferences and I'm going into the View tab. Now I'm going to scroll down until I see the color section right here. And what you want to choose is 3-band. In the previous version of Rekordbox, you had blue and you had RGB. Now you want to choose the 3-band version. Now let me explain what this does. It changes the look of the waveforms to what you see right now. So again, I'm just going to make sure that you can see it properly. Here you go. So it changes the look of the waveforms to what you see right now. Blue, yellow, and white. Now the blue represents bass, low frequencies. The yellow represents mid frequencies and the white represents high frequencies. So it's fantastic in order for it to let you know what's going on in your tracks and whereabouts the drops are, the breakdowns are, and so on. Now, for me, it's even more useful around the overview of the actual tracks. You see that I can clearly see there's a lot of bass in these sections over here. and not much bass at all over here. So it's very clear for me to see where the drops begin, where the breakdowns are. Really, really helpful. It also makes it easier for you to separate the different phrases. This is something that I'm going to talk about, but what I teach to all of my students is to learn how to count your phrases and mix with phrases. If you can do this, it's going to make your mixing much better. So this can help separate your phrases because you can clearly see when there's a bit of a gap and then a new phrase begins. So I highly recommend you go ahead and do this. So step one would be to import your tracks, highlight them all, and add new analysis data. Then go to the Preferences tab and change the waveform view to the 3-band color view. All right. Now, next I'm going to go into something that a lot of my students ask me about regularly, and that is, how do you properly use memory cues and hot cues? Also, why would you use hot cues instead of memory cues and vice versa? I'm going to start with hot cues quickly. Hot cues can be set by going wherever you like on the track. So I'm just going to go to the beginning of the drop over here. And I'm simply going to push the button that says A. And this sets a hot cue for me. Now, whenever I'm playing back the track, it doesn't matter where I am. I could be at the beginning. As soon as I press that hot cue, my track position jumps to the hot cue point. Now, this is extremely useful for many reasons, and I'm going to get into them right away. But before I do, I want you to understand that hot cues should be used for performance reasons. So try to set your hot cues with the thought in mind that you're going to use them as the track is playing. And this is what's different to hot cues and memory cues. Now, you can also set looped hot cues. So let's say you find a cool vocal somewhere or a cool little section that you want to loop over and over again. Let's just say this one bar over here. I can set a loop over this one bar. And then if I set it as a hot cue, it's going to save that loop as a hot cue. Now, wherever I am in the track, further on or further back, as soon as I press that hot cue, it's going to go back to the position of the hot cue and activate the loop. Think about the performance capabilities over here. Let's say you're playing another track on the other deck. I'm just going to beat sync them right now because I'm just using the laptop. So you can start the new track with a loop hot cue. Now, whenever you're ready to bring in the new track, you can fade out the other track and go to the drop, the hot cue. So this is what I mean by keep your hot cues free for these kind of purposes. What a lot of people tend to do is set hot cues to help them decide their mix in and their mix out points. You don't need to use up your hot cue slots for this. You can use memory cues for this. Now, I'm going to be using performance mode for the majority of this tutorial because I realize most people use controllers at home. But the exact same thing applies to export mode, which is the free version. All your hot cues and your memory cues will transfer over to your CDJs when you export your music via a USB stick. Now, to set memory cues on a track, you click here and you go to the memory cue tab. You would do the same thing on deck 1 if that is the deck you want to set the memory cues on. Now, unlike hot cues, in order to set a memory cue, you have to first cue the track where you want the memory cue to be, and then all you do is press the memory button. Now, a memory cue looks like a little triangle at the point where you set it at, whereas a hot cue is going to have a letter associated with it. Now, both hot cues and memory cues, you can color code them. So I could right click to the left of the time of where I set the memory cue and select a color for it. I could select yellow, anything you like. This is really helpful in order to help you identify what's going on in the track where you set the memory cue. For example, one great mixing tip that I can give you is avoid mixing vocals from two different tracks together, because it just sounds like there's too many people trying to talk and sing at the same time and there's no intelligibility. So you could, in order to help you identify when a vocal is coming up, let's say there's one here. I realize there isn't, but let's just assume there is. I could set a memory cue there and I can color code it yellow. Now, whenever I'm mixing in the future, I'll see that yellow memory cue and know that there is a vocal at that part of the track. So no matter whether you've forgotten or have even never played the track before live, memory cues can help be great indicators for where you should mix in and out your tracks. So once again, you have to go to the memory cue tab. You cue the track with the cue point first, and then you push the memory cue button. Now, another tip that I highly recommend you use, especially if you're fairly new to DJing, is set 2 memory cues at the beginning of every track. So if I go to the beginning of my track, this would be where I would normally start playing the track from when I mix it in. I would set 2 memory cues, one at the very beginning, so here, and exactly one phrase later. Now, a phrase, for those of you who don't know, is 8 bars worth of music. Sorry for the little delay there. I just wanted to double check everything is going through. So a phrase is 8 bars of the track. Now, in 1 bar, there are normally 4 beats. In any sort of house or techno, tech house, drum and bass even, you're going to have 4 beats per bar. So if I press play and I count the bar, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And see, Rekordbox knows that a bar contains 4 beats, because if you pay attention to the bar numbered here, at the beginning, you've got bar 1, beat number 1. This is what 1.1 means. Then you've got bar 1, beat 2, bar 1, beat 3, beat 4, and then bar 2. Now, every 8 bars, what you'll find is something is going to change in the track. Not always, but in most cases. And this can be a very, very minor change. So let's look at this track and we'll see what happens after 8 bars. Okay, and I'll just zoom out so you can see more of the bars. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Fantastic. Little plug over there. That's one of my tracks I did with Alex Soren, and it's a remix by Sam Lucas. Lovely remix. So you see, after 8 bars, there was a slight change in the track. So what we want to do is set a memory cue at the beginning and the memory cue 8 bars later. So 1, 2. I'm going to skip ahead so I don't have to count the whole thing once more. The beginning of bar 9 is where it should be. 2, 3, 4, stop, cue, memory. Now, why have I done this? Well, now there's a memory cue at the beginning and a memory cue at the beginning of the next phrase. So by looking at the overview of the waveform, I can very easily get an estimate for when a new phrase will begin. I know that if from here to here it's one phrase, from here to here, which seems like roughly the same length, it's going to be another phrase. Here to here, there's going to be another new phrase that begins, and another new phrase, and another new phrase. So it can really help you out when you're mixing, and I highly recommend that you do this. Now, I want to talk a little bit about playlist creation, because I think a lot of people find this somewhat difficult. And I want to start off by explaining that there is 2 types of playlists that you can make. The first type of playlist is a playlist where you put all the tracks within a specific genre into that playlist. Then what you do is whenever you want to play a specific genre of music, you can simply go to the playlist with that genre of music title and load tracks from there. The second type of playlist is the playlist that you can create as a choreographed performance. So think about festival DJs. Festival DJs have most of the time every single track prepared in a specific playlist, in a specific set list sort of, and they're going to play the playlist from track 1 to track 2 to track 3 in the order that they have prepared it in. This is kind of like a choreography, and you kind of also need to do this if you want to be using looped hot cues and you want to be kind of creative with your mixing, because if you want to mix and mash up tracks, it's good to have tested them beforehand, put them together in a playlist so that you know when you go and perform those live, all your hot cues are set up and you know that the 2 tracks you're going to mash up together, or 3 or 4, are going to work perfectly. So first, we're going to look at the overall genre playlist. So not the choreographed playlist, but the ones that you're going to want to make first. Now you might have a collection with thousands of tracks. My collection isn't too large. It's 1,400 tracks. You know, some of my DJ friends, they have collections with 10,000, 20,000 tracks. How do you organize that? How do you choose what to play out of all of those tracks? You can't memorize them all because that's virtually impossible. So you have to let Rekordbox do the hard work for you. You can use the intelligent My Tag system that Rekordbox has. Now you open it up with this little tag over here. Now the My Tag system is basically tags which you can assign tracks to. You have 4 columns. By default, Rekordbox already has a few genres and a few names for the columns, but it's completely customizable. I can rename the columns, rename the tags, I can add new ones, and I can even delete them. Now, the way I would tag a track is simply by highlighting it and selecting one of the tags. Now, I highly recommend that for tracks that you're not sure what the genre name should be, put them under a tag known as unknown. So I'm just going to tag a few as unknown. I'll explain why in a couple of minutes when I get to it. So what I'll do is I'll go through all of these tracks. You'd normally have a quick listen to them through the headphones and then tag them. And then I'll just tag a bunch as house. Now, once you've tagged a few of your tracks, on the playlist section of Rekordbox, you can either create a normal playlist, which means you'd have to manually go and drag tracks into the playlist, or you can right-click and select to create a new intelligent playlist. This is an extremely useful feature because I can now say, I'm going to name it House Intelligent Playlist, and the conditions that I'm going to select are going to be my tag contains house. So this means that when I click OK, all of the tracks that I have tagged with the tag house will be automatically added to this playlist. And in the future, if I tag any more tracks as house, they will automatically be added to this playlist as well. This makes it extremely easy for organizing your music, because you don't only need to have the tags for the genres, you can have tags for components, for situations. So I've seen other DJs change this to like energy level 1, energy level 2. You can also mix criteria, such as I could create an intelligent playlist that has, let's say, the my tag as, let's go with techno, but I can add the criteria, a condition, and I can say match all of the conditions or any of the conditions. And the second condition could be within a BPM range. It could be anything you want it to be. Rating is a good one. You could have is in the range of 0 to 3 stars or to 2 stars. And the reason why you might want to do this is because what a lot of DJs do is set a rating for their tracks based on the energy level. 5 stars being the peak energy level for the genre, so the probably late night when everyone's a little bit drunk and dancing, it's the highest energy level, and rating star 1 would be the lowest energy level. So you could create an intelligent playlist with stars 1 to 2 or stars 1 to 3, so low energy tracks in a specific genre. It's an extremely powerful feature for organizing all of your music in Rekordbox. Now, I will also say it can take a bit of time, but on average, you can tag maybe one track every 10 seconds. It doesn't take long. You simply have a quick listen to it. If you know the genre, you quickly go ahead and tag it. And after you've tagged them all, you're going to save so much time in the future when you're creating your playlist to play out live. Okay. Now I said create an unknown tag because let's say through your collection, you've gone ahead and tagged most of your tracks, but you left some untagged. It would be difficult to find which ones you left untagged, and you don't want to be going through all of them again. But if you've tagged the ones you weren't sure of as unknown, you can simply create an intelligent playlist with the my tag contains unknown. Press OK, and here are all of the tracks that you created with the tag unknown. So you go through them one by one and you tag them if you've learned what the genre name should be. Awesome. Now I want to talk about key signatures and how you can use them to help you create amazing choreographed playlists. So if we look at my Kalani folder, Kalani is my DJ name. So I use this in order to create the playlists that I create when I perform in places like Ministry of Sound, in festivals, in clubs where I feel like I want to have somewhat a choreographed playlist, especially when I know that it's a big event and when I know the crowd that's going to be in the event. So Valentine's was because I have a residency in Ministry of Sound and I played there on Valentine's Day. And I had a somewhat choreographed playlist. So I didn't play it from beginning to end perfectly, but I did play a lot of these tracks in this order. These are tracks that I've been playing for years, and I know the crowd's reaction, especially in those kinds of events, and that's why I did this. Now, in order for this to be effective, you need to understand key signatures. If you're not a musician, key signatures won't mean much to you, but I'm going to give you a great analogy. If two tracks are in related keys, it's kind of like, let's imagine a singer in a singing competition show, and I'm sure you've seen lots of them before, and you've heard that some singers just sound really not that good, quite bad. The reason why they don't sound great is because they're out of tune with the music that's playing in the background. When they're in tune with the music, they sound fantastic. Now, when two tracks are in related keys or using the same key signatures, you can see Rekordbox tells you the keys here, it means they're much more likely to sound harmonically pleasing when played together, because the notes, the musical notes that have been used to compose their melodic elements are in the same family of notes. This is known as a key in music theory. So whether you understand much of that or not, all you need to know is that when Rekordbox shows you a green highlight over the key section, that track is related in key with the track listed as the master track on one of your decks. So if track 1 is listed as the master track, you see the keys change. It's now showing me tracks related in key to deck 1. If deck 2 is listed as the master track, it's now showing me tracks related in key to deck 2. This means that those tracks, like I said, are more likely to sound harmonically pleasing. Additionally, you need to make sure this is ticked in order for you to have this feature. If it is not pressed, that feature is not going to be active. It's called the traffic light feature. Make sure you turn it on. Now, this is extremely useful when creating choreographed playlists, because you want to try and make your playlists build energy throughout your set, but also have some really interesting mashups throughout your set musically. See, it can get quite boring if you're simply playing one track until the end, then mixing the next one in, then mixing the next one in, and so on and so forth. So if you get some tracks where you could kind of mix them together and get them to sound really great in the process, that's when you're going to start to stand out as a DJ. So what you could do is you could use your intelligent playlist. Let's say you want to create a playlist that's using sort of house music genre tracks. So you've tagged all of your house tracks, and there's, hundreds of them or thousands of them, and you want to take maybe a good 30 to 50 of them to create a choreographed playlist. So you would then create a normal playlist. I'll name it Core Play. I go to my house intelligent playlist where I would have all of my tracks with the house tag on them. And I would start auditioning the tracks and put in the ones that I think sound best into the playlist. But also I would try and pick tracks which are related in key. So the first thing I would do is try to find track number 1. So I'm going to sort by BPM. I'm just going to click and drag this here. I'm going to sort by BPM and maybe start fairly low BPM, so a slightly more chill track. And I'm also looking at the waveform to see the intensity of the tracks. So let's load this one in. Sorry, I'm actually going to go back to Captain Records just so that this video doesn't get flagged up for copyright issues and get taken down. So sort by BPM. Let's have a listen to this track first. It's a nice groovy track. It's got a saxophone. I'm going to make this track number 1. So I'm going to drag and drop it into Core Play, which is my choreographed playlist. Then I'm going to make sure that track 1 is listed as my master track on deck 2, which it already is. And I'm going to immediately go and audition the tracks which are related in key. And hopefully I find one that works. Of course, I've only got 25 tracks to choose from here. Normally, you'd probably have hundreds or thousands of tracks. So keep in mind, this would work better if your collection is much larger. So I'm going to try out this one by our friend Griff. To me, this sounds like it might work very nicely. I'm just going to beat sync them. You also want to make sure MT is turned on. If it's not on, the pitch of the track might change because the tempo is changing. So if you don't understand what that means too much, don't worry about it. Basically turn MT on. Otherwise, even if the two tracks are related in key, it might not work. What I'm going to do to test them is set a little loop around here. I'm going to go with a 1 phrase loop. And simply press play on the next track. I'm going to wait for the new phrase. 7, 8, 2, 3, 4. Fantastic. Now I want to talk about a few incredible new features with Rekordbox 6. Now, first of all, there is no longer a one-off payment plan. There is only subscription plans with Rekordbox 6. However, what they've also done is if you've got a DDJ controller and you plug it in, you don't need to be paying for a subscription for the performance mode of Rekordbox to work. The only thing is you don't get all of the features with that if you're not paying for the subscription. So I'm going to go back into this. I'm going to select this My Page window. I just want to show you a few things. You may not be able to see it straight away. So let me just make sure you can. One moment. There you go. You should be able to see that now. So in this My Page window, you can go to the plan. And if you haven't activated your plan, there's going to be a little link directing you to where you go on the website and you can select which monthly payment plan you want to get. Now, they're actually quite cheap and they're doing a discount until July, where if you purchase the plan before July, you get a discounted price for life. And it's about $9.99 for the most premium version. That's pounds, and slightly cheaper for the version below. As I said, you get the basic version of performance mode for free anyway, so it's not that much of an issue. Once you've done this, if you have activated your plan, you get a couple of new incredible features. One of them is cloud storage. So what you need to do is go to Library Sync, and you'll need to create a Dropbox account if you don't already have one. And you would just go follow the instructions over here. I've already synced mine up. You'd follow the instructions here, and then you'd be able to sync your devices through the cloud as well as all of your playlists in your library. I'm going to close this window and show you exactly what that would do. So what this allows you to do is no longer rely on your collection on a hard drive or your computer or something like that. So let's say, touch wood, something happens to your computer or your laptop or your hard drive, it breaks or you lose it. Well, you wouldn't have lost your Rekordbox library if it had been stored on the cloud. Now that I've synced up my Dropbox, I could highlight either all the tracks in the playlist, I could right click on a playlist or highlight my entire collection. I can right click, and where it says Cloud Library Sync, I can select Upload and I can select Dropbox. What this will do is move or copy all of your entire, playlist or collection, whatever you choose, to Dropbox. But it will also store all the information such as the memory cues, the hot cues, the key signatures, your playlist information on the cloud as well. So if you, touch wood, like I said, lose your laptop or something happens to your storage device, you get a new laptop, you download Rekordbox, and everything is already saved. You just import it from Dropbox. And it's extremely amazing that they finally added this feature because we've been asking for it for ages, It's a simple thing, but an important thing. So then, personally, what I would do is I would move my files to my Dropbox folder, because Dropbox is actually a folder on your computer, but anything that goes into that folder is stored in the cloud. So if you've been using Dropbox for a while, this probably makes sense to you. So rather than if you selected copy, what might happen is you would have duplicates. You would have the audio files saved in the original location, but you'd also have them saved in your Dropbox folder, and it will take up double the amount of space in your computer. So personally, I wouldn't do this. I would simply move the files so that they're in one storage location. Like I said, I think this is an incredibly powerful feature because it's extremely safe and future-proof for DJs. So that's primarily it for the Rekordbox Masterclass. The things I want you to take away from this is hot cues for performance purposes, memory cues to help tell you what's going on in your tracks, the My Tag intelligent playlist system, key signatures, creating your intelligent playlists so you've got easy access to them, and then creating choreographed playlists such as this one for when you're performing live in a big festival or a big club that requires specific styles of music and you know the crowd very well. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you have learned something from it. Any questions you have, ask them in the comments below and I will respond to each and every one of them. And we are also hosting one-to-one remote DJ and production lessons. So go back to the front camera. We've got all the production equipment here. We have overhead DJ cameras with DJ equipment just behind me. And we're doing one-to-one remote lessons. You can also book lessons for the music industry and also with DJs such as Kasim, who was recently ranked number 19 best house music producer across the whole of Beatport. So congratulations to him. Another big shout out to Captain Records for letting me use all of their tracks. I hope you've learned something from this, and I'll catch you in the next live stream. Take care.